Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for today's video. It is Monday, October 10th, which is World Mental Health Day. So to celebrate, Boys Town is on with three of our special experts talking about ways to prioritize mental health and self-care today and year-round. So my name is Gabby, and I will be your host for today. And I will have our first guest introduce herself. You may have seen her before. We do live videos together every month. Bridget, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Gabby. I'm Bridget Barnes. I'm the director of parenting for Boys Town.
Thank you. And we're also joined here by Michelle. Michelle, how's it going?
Good, thank you. Thank you for having me today. My name is Michelle Hewitt. I am a national trainer with Boys Town with a background in clinical mental health counseling. Thank you for having me.
Yes. And then Natalie, how are you?
I'm good. I'm excited to be here. I'm Natalie Jensen. I'm a staff psychologist at the Boys Town Center for Behavioral Health.
Wonderful. So we're going through several different discussion questions relating on mental health for children, parents, and educators. So there's definitely something for everyone on this live. So make sure you give this video a thumbs up. And if you have a question for any of our experts as we go through our discussion questions, go ahead and leave them in the comment section and we will get them answered before the end of this live. And if you're watching later on after this live concludes and you have a follow-up question, you can always message our page and I'm happy to connect you with any of our experts here. Okay, so let's get into these discussion questions. The first one's for you, Natalie. So from a behavioral health standpoint, why is prioritizing mental health important for people of all ages?
That's a great question. I think, in my opinion, prioritizing mental health is very important because it affects our functioning across all areas. I think there's a direct relationship between our mental health and how we take care of our bodies, how we sleep, how we eat, how we show up in our relationships, how we perform at school and at work, and just how we think and feel as we navigate our days. And I think that it's really important to bring awareness to this connection between how we think and feel and what we do, because then we can take a little more ownership and teach our children to do so, to just create a life that feels worth living. We can't control everything, and there's some things that we just have to kind of learn to accept, but there is a lot of power we have if we just pay attention and be intentional in managing all of that.
Mm-hmm, definitely. So can you talk a little bit, you mentioned when you introduced yourself, you're from the Boys Town Center for Behavioral Health. So can you talk a little bit more about Boys Town's position on mental health?
Yeah. I think Boys Town's position on mental health fits really nicely into the overall message and mission statement of changing the way America cares for children and families. And I think Boys Town offers a spectrum of mental health services that range from online resources that you can access via our websites and socials, all the way up to inpatient hospitalization. And I think along the spectrum between those two extremes, we offer brief mental health assessment and intervention with your primary care doctors. We have outpatient therapy, just about any type you can imagine, group therapies, family therapy, partner therapy, and individual therapy at the outpatient level, psychotropic medication management when warranted, and then of course we have the crisis hotline, which is available 365 days a year, 24 hours a day for families experiencing emergent crises. And I think that no matter what level of care you're accessing, the staff here will work to meet you where you're at and see you and your family's unique needs and kind of approach you in a non-judgmental, supportive way to just help you with whatever you're facing.
Well said. And I love what you said too about there being such a range, because with mental health, there definitely is that range. And Boys Town really specializes in helping people with all areas of mental health. And people who are in a lot of different life situations. So even today, we're talking about a mix of children and educators and parents, but there is really something for everyone. And on World Mental Health Day, that's kind of the emphasis we want to make, is that mental health is, for everyone and is something that everyone should take into consideration. So thanks for naming some of those.
Yeah.
So Bridget, let's talk about parents here. What, from your expertise, are parents struggling with right now mental health wise?
Well, in our classes across this country, parents are struggling with many things connected with mental health, and perhaps the top concerns are availability, affordability, reliability, and acceptance of that service. So what I'm hearing from parents is that they struggle sometimes to definitely find mental health. There's kind of a mental health desert in some places, like in Black and Brown communities. And then we see from parents saying that they can't afford oftentimes the mental health that is available, depending on where they're at as far as insurance is concerned. And then parents share with us that the reliability of mental health in their communities. So what might be here today might be gone tomorrow, and I'm hearing that a lot in the rural areas. And then finally, acceptance. I had a dad call me last week with his daughter was suffering from anxiety, self-harm, chronic depression. She wasn't going to school. And he had gotten a lot of supports for her, but she was not accepting those supports. And so he was really struggling because he had really turned his life upside down to make sure his daughter was being cared for. So those are just a few of the things that parents are sharing with us in regards to mental health care.
Mm-hmm. What about teachers, Michelle?
Yeah, so I mean, they're they're human beings, and a lot of them are parents themselves. But they've found that the Kaiser Foundation has done a recent study that has found that through COVID, situations of anxiety and depression have quadrupled.
Yeah.
With teachers. And so, and to Bridget's point, there's been a lack of services. There was lack of access through that period of time, which only increased the rates of anxiety and depression. But interestingly enough, because there is less access for people in general in the community, the Department of Education came out with budgets for 2023. And the Department of Education historically has had about $30 million worth of services with nonprofits and community organizations to work through schools. This year, they're asking for a budget of $468 million. So other people in the community can access those services through school as well. So there's a big need, certainly, and teachers are no different. They've, had to turn on a dime and reorganize and whatnot, and still be parents at the same time with all of the things that they had to address during the COVID situation as well.
Mm-hmm. So we've talked, quite a bit about accessibility, and with all of these groups, with children and parents and teachers, what should they do if they are coming to the realization that they're struggling with their mental health, but maybe can't quite find the things they need to get that help? Natalie, do you want to go first for kids?
Sure. I think the first thing that comes to mind for me is be responsive and not reactive. I think sometimes we all have hard days and hard weeks or tough situations we go through. And I think sometimes the first impulse can be to react. Yeah. And understandably, right? Especially when we're dealing with things that can be on the face really scary. And I think sometimes we don't always need a clinical intervention. I think sometimes people just need more social support, or maybe little naturalistic environmental hacks, like being really mindful of your sleep hygiene, maybe putting in some technology restrictions, even making a connection with a teacher at your school. Or I think sometimes there are things that can be done in the environment that you're already in to weather a tough situation. Right. That said, you are the expert of you and your family. And if the passage of time or these sort of naturalistic interventions are not leading to improvement and there is impairment in daily functioning, then I do think it is important to seek out professional help. And whatever that looks like, whether you go to the school staff, administrators, counselors, see what your options are there, you turn to your primary care provider, you call the behavioral health clinic or get online or call the hotline. I think that if situations are persisting and it's causing impairment, then it is critical to reach out. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And Bridget, what about for parents?
Well, I think probably the most helpful thing parents can do in regards to mental health is to start listening and start talking, like Natalie said. Start talking. Break the silence that we have in this country about mental health. As it pertains, especially to our children, trying to include mental health kind of self-assessment, self-care in your routine. Just like we have a physical health assessment once a year, we should have that as a regular thing that we're just going to do. And we don't have to do a lot. You can just make note of that and just break the silence, remove the shame, and create avenues of acceptance and prevention in regards to mental health.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Michelle, I'm sure that kind of goes right along with our teachers, because they, want to be so strong for their students. But if they're struggling with mental health, what are some steps that they should take?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, especially when we're out with national training, we are really big proponents of the Boys Town National Hotline and the numerous ways they can access and their students can access the services through that hotline. We've talked a lot about teachers saying it's okay to tap out for a second and just take a mental health moment, whether that's just walking to get a drink of water. We teach calming down strategies and self-control strategies for the teachers and the students. So we know that those moments are times where not only do the students need to regroup because there's trauma in those, in their little minds without a fully functioning prefrontal cortex, and the adults actually have to have those moments as well. So taking advantage of those minutes that they have in the day that they provide for the students, and take that as a way for you to also regroup. We've talked about buddy systems too, just checking in. How are you doing? Making some connections that you might not have normally made in your working environment in the schools, and just asking those questions. How are you doing? Let's stop and have some coffee. Let's talk about some things. And we're finding that schools are more and more supportive of that. Even pre-COVID, they were becoming a little bit more aware of, needing those mental health moments. And so post-COVID now, hopefully post-COVID, that they're really taking advantage of that and still doing like mindfulness techniques or yoga classes offered in the mornings or what have you. So just taking advantage of those things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that buddy activity is something that I think we all could do. Even today, it's World Mental Health Day. I could text any one of my friends and say, hey, do you want to be, my mental health buddy? And every week we could check in with each other, and kids can do that and parents can do that. So that's a great activity mentioned. We do have a couple comments coming in on the stream, so just know that I see those, and we'll get to those here at the end of the live. So make sure if you're watching live and you have a question or any kind of thing you want to comment, go ahead and leave that below, and make sure you like this video. Okay, so my next question here is for Natalie. What kind of behavioral health concerns is the Boys Town Center for Behavioral Health seeing that our viewers should be aware of? What are kids struggling with lately mental health wise? I recently did a live with the Boys Town Hotline, and they have said over and over the last couple years that anxiety is a really big concern. Are you guys seeing that at the clinic as well?
Not that I'm aware of. I'm not aware of like a major uptick in that trend. I think overall, kind of as my colleagues have been speaking to, there's just a need, a very huge need, and our wait lists are long, and we are doing our best to see everyone that we can as quickly as we can. But I think we see anything and everything, and we have people here that are experts in disordered eating or toileting or self-harm, emotion regulation, relationships, social skills. It's just, we see it all.
Mhm.
I do think the last few years have presented us all with a lot of unpredictable and uncontrollable circumstances that we've all had to navigate together and figure out how to pivot and be flexible and creative and patient and give us all a big dose of grace just in navigating that. And it's so nice for me to hear you two talking about how you're doing that in schools and with families and just normalizing, like, let's just talk about it, and support each other and do what we can. And yeah, so
Mhm.
I think that's been just, how do we survive all of this and how do we thrive, if even if it looks different.
Mhm. And I'm glad you said that the clinic sees a mix of everything, because it's definitely reassuring to me, and I'm sure other parents watching, that no concern is too small, right? And there's so many different behaviors and things to look out for as a parent, but the fact that Boys Town Behavioral Health sees everything, you're not going to be the first parent to walk into the clinic and say, this is what my family's struggling with, because there's a high chance that you are not alone in your struggle. And that's what we really want to emphasize too, especially with mental health.
Mm-hmm. Yes. We'd rather you come and kind of err on the side of, oh, this is okay, or like, we're just barely seeing this and we can do some prevention or early intervention like these two have been talking about, versus we waited, or we were scared, or we weren't sure, and then now we're really in a sticky situation.
Yes, definitely. So, this live is called Prioritizing Mental Health. So, I think it'd be great if we could go around and talk about ways that we could prioritize our mental health in our day to day lives, kind of making those small changes that can definitely improve over time. So, Bridget, how can parents do that?
Well, I always suggest, sometimes your day, it gets going. Once it goes, it's hard to get a hold of it. And I say, if you can, before breakfast, have some quiet time, meditation, prayer, exercise time, something that kind of sets the tone for you would be great. And then placing times to just chat, sending out a positive burst of something to friends, to family, like we were saying, just is kind of tapping in communication, I like to put it, with parents. And, really finding those services like Your Life, Your Voice for kids as a preventative measure, not as something I'm in crisis, but something they can just check into all the time. Or for young kids, going to our Boys Town Press, there's a wonderful book out there, The Butterflies in Me, wonderful way for parents to kind of start talking about kids feeling anxious, or how other kids, because other kids might be noticing their friends or someone at school or something like that, and being able to recognize them versus shunning that kid or not being able to know what to do in those situations. So really kind of having conversations, normalizing it, creating a model. You do the things you want your kids to do, right? Not just do as I say and not as I do. So that is important for families to do, and for parents to do as well for themselves.
Yeah. And Michelle, what about teachers? How can they, make small changes to prioritize their mental health?
Well, Natalie said something earlier about your physical health and your mental health go hand in hand. So someone told me a long time ago that you have to carve out the time. It's not just going to miraculously, you're not going to have a miraculous 15 to 30 minutes in your day. You have to carve that out and make it a priority. I think that for our teachers, the nice thing is that they can do it as they're teaching their children, right? And we have students in the classroom, and if we're learning how to do some deep breathing or do some reflections and gratitude journals in the classroom, that's a moment for our teachers to be able to do that as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's also great too for teachers kind of to be role models and showing, here I am doing this journal activity with you, or, whatever it may be, to show them that we can both do this and prioritize our mental health.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so thank you for that. We have a couple more questions here. So I want to remind everyone again, if you have a question on prioritizing mental health or anything mental health related for our experts, go ahead and leave it in the comment section now so we can make sure to get to it before this live concludes. And make sure you give this video a thumbs up. Always have to say that. Okay, so the next question is, this one's a little more personal, but I always like to hear this too. So, what are your personal favorite ways to care for your mental health? And are there any coping tools that help you that our audience could try? Natalie?
Yoga. Someone mentioned yoga a little bit ago. Yoga is huge for me. And I actually recently even became a yoga teacher. I went through a 200-hour training. Yoga is just the combination between breath work, present moment awareness, mindfulness, and movement has just been a game changer for me. And then if I go to the yoga studio, I get the added perk of making connections and social support. Like we've all been talking about how important that is. So if yoga is not your thing, I would say find something that can get you in the moment, get you moving, get you in your breath. Whatever that means, whether it's running or even just taking a few moments to breathe while you wash your hands. I think those things are really critical. We can spend a lot of time up in our head, and sometimes our brain is not our best friend. And so getting into your body can be really grounding. Or I also think focusing on others can be really helpful too, finding ways to take your focus outward. And doing, whether it's service or just really showing an interest in someone else's day. I think sometimes that can help a lot too.
Mm-hmm. Well, congratulations on your yoga certification. That's awesome.
Yeah. If you had asked me 10 years ago if that would ever be a thing I did, I would say no. But it was a fun little journey for me to take. So.
Right. And inspires us too to try something new. You know, you never know if a new activity like that is going to help your mental health. So
it's very much in beginner mode again, learner mode, which can be challenging and really rewarding too. So.
Yes. Awesome. Bridget, how do you prioritize your mental health? I know your schedule is cram-packed busy, so you really have to prioritize it.
I do. You're right about that. I think we all do. I think, everybody has just been crazy, especially lately. But when I was younger, like Natalie, I used to love boxing. I used to love to box, and it was, kept me very much in the moment. But I always painted. I love to paint. I feel like it's a good therapy for kids. It's a great way for me to kind of release some of my feelings and emotions onto the canvas. So painting is a big thing for me, and I still exercise, not boxing so much. Still have my bag in the basement. When I'm really upset, I can go down there. But other than that, I just do, some quiet walking. I do love to read. I love a real book in my hands. I love to flip, pages and just take some time to be quiet and read.
Yeah. And then Michelle, I know you travel all over the place with the Boys Town National Training. So how do you fit in moments of self-care and mental health care within your travels?
Great question. I'm going to answer as long as you answer it too.
Okay.
So the first thing I do, and I do travel quite a bit. Thankfully, my daughter's grown and out of the house. And so I don't have that added pressure. But the number one thing is control the controllables and know that there are things that are just going to come up that are just out of my control. And when those moments come, then I can just let it go.
Yeah.
Right. I have no power over when a flight is canceled. I have no power over weather. I have no power. So I just try to let those things go as quickly as possible. One of the things that I love doing, because I come from a very musical family, so just between you and me and everybody watching, that I put in my AirPods and have my private dance party.
Yes.
Just because it helps with it. It's my form of exercise. It's my music is my thing. And I just enjoy it. And so that's what I do. I take my AirPods everywhere I go. And when I need it, I just have my own personal dance party, preferably when nobody's watching.
I love that. And that's something, we all can benefit from. So that's great. Well, I'll answer. I guess I never really answer any of these questions. I'm always the interviewer. But I have a little miniature dachshund puppy, and he really helps me with my mental health. So usually when I work, I'm on the computer all day long. So I love taking, 20-minute break out of my day and taking him for a little walk throughout the neighborhood. That always helps me kind of decompress and not think about, work or whatever I have after work or this
I love
weekend, things like that. So highly recommend, whether you have a dog or not, just going out for a 20-minute walk and sunshine break is always helps me. So I see someone in the comments too. They said that martial arts in general is a good mental health care. So that's another thing, we could do yoga and boxing and martial arts, and
a lot of breath work in martial arts for sure.
Yeah, that's a great one. Thanks for commenting. Okay, so we have just one more question here, and that is, where can our viewers find more information and get access to you three and the services you help provide? So, Bridget, could you talk first, maybe a little bit about Boys Town Common Sense Parenting for those who might not be familiar?
Right. So Boys Town's Common Sense Parenting Program is available due to COVID now online everywhere. So parents all over the country can access that online on their phone or on their computers. If they just go to boystown.org/parenting, they should be able to get into our site, register, or download things from our site, ask the experts. Some of these ladies that are up here are on that. So definitely lots of support for parents, but register today. What they find is they go to a class and they hear their own stories there. And they hear some information that they didn't know, like, oh, I can get that. Where's that located at? And so parents kind of helping parents as well, and getting some really great material. Our books, our workbooks, skill cards, all of that really helps parents get through those days when they think, I don't know which way to go. And sometimes it's a very simple fix. And sometimes when I can't fix it with this, I know where to go. In Boys Town, we're a great gateway, Common Sense Parenting, for getting to the other services that we have here at Boys Town, as Natalie was pointing out. I mean, we have so much stuff that, sometimes parents are like, wow, I didn't know you had all that. And we're like, yeah, we have it. It's right here.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I'll make sure, all the resources that we've mentioned throughout this chat and that will be mentioned by our other two experts, I'll make sure to link those in the comment section so they're easy for everyone to access. Michelle, what about national training?
Yeah, so we have our own website, boystownnationaltraining.org. Lots of resources for teachers there. I think you can access some of the Common Sense Parenting training through that website as well. So that is a huge resource for teachers. We also have Boys Town National Training Facebook page, as well as Social Emotional Learning with Boys Town Training on Facebook, which has that second one is one you have to request to be a member of, but tons and tons of resources and lesson plans for addressing mental health with your kids and social skills with your kids, your students.
Yeah, I'll link that so people can request to join the group. I'm in it. It's super helpful. Yeah. And then Natalie, what about the behavioral health clinic?
If you are in the Omaha area and would like to schedule with one of our providers, you can call 531-355, I'm gonna make sure I get it right, 3358. You can also go to boystownpediatrics.org/services/behavioral health. And thank you for putting that in the link, because I'm sure that's a lot to just try to remember as I'm saying it. One thing I'll point out there, if you go to our website, we have something called Kid Tips, and it's a downloadable PDF with just one-page ideas on anything you can think of, whether it's like technology use, napping, just quick little tips that our staff psychologists have cultivated and curated to be digestible for families to read and implement something right away.
Yeah, awesome. Yes, like I said, I'll link that below. We do have one user comment that I want to bring up for your guys' advice. It says, I'm a parent dealing with a child with mental health issues, and am having trouble with the school interpreting those mental health issues as behavioral problems, and they are more punishing instead of supporting in the classroom. So what advice could we give this user?
I'll go if nobody wants to take that one. Yeah. So one of the things that we talk to our teachers about, and I don't know what school this is, I don't know where they're from, but reaching out to Boys Town National Training would be great for that school district. But to be proactive, first of all, and teach social skills proactively. One of the things that our teachers love to do is we have a book called Teaching Social Skills to Youth that has about 196 skills in it. And what they can do is either take an IEP or a BIP, whatever you're working with, and match up skills that you can teach students that kind of coincide with their individualized IEPs or BIPs. And so I don't know what services you have in place for your child right now through the school, but certainly reach out to National Training for help for yourself, or boystown.org with Common Sense Parenting for yourself as a parent, and then encourage the school as well. I mean, if they want to send more information, we certainly can have someone reach out to the school district for that as well.
Yes,
Yeah.
in the Common Sense Parenting book, there's actually a chapter, an entire one, on working with the schools, even how to set up a meeting, how to take notes, how to approach this, difficult situations. So I would really strongly suggest them getting that book or coming to the class and talking to us about that. But I think there's a lot of support up there on parenting.org just on that topic. So they don't have to come to the class, but if they just go to our site, they could be able to download a few things from there. But I would strongly say, again, learn to talk and listen more. So when the teachers call you and say there's a problem here and they're consequating that, go in with listening first, actively listening to what that teacher has to say and writing down everything that they have to say, and then asking for a meeting to be more proactive for the next time. We're not going to wait for him or her to have a problem again. We're going to talk about what kind of strategies can we use, and going up to our site, coming to our classes, getting that book can help you to think of those strategies that you can do with the teachers and with your child at home so they can practice those things so they can get better. You can't wait until they're doing it wrong at school. You have to practice at home following instructions so that they can do better at school, and then getting that teacher to notice when the child is doing it well. Here in Nebraska, we'll go to a school if the school invites us just to do what we call a parent cafe. We just talk to everybody at the school about a topic. I'm going to go in a couple of weeks here in Nebraska to talk to 2 different schools. So definitely it's something that you can use with the teacher and at home. I don't think there's one or the other. It happens in both places.
Mm-hmm. Do you know what is the name of that Common Sense Parenting book? They're asking the name of it.
Oh, it's called Common Sense Parenting.
Okay, that's what I thought.
For school-age children are toddlers and preschoolers, but I think school age is what we're thinking of here. Yeah.
Great. And I will make sure to link that too for you in the description. So awesome. Like I mentioned too, if you missed this live and you're watching it later on as a pre-recorded video on YouTube or Facebook, and you have a question, you can always message our page directly and I will monitor that inbox and make sure to get you the help or the resource that you need. So thank you so much, all of you, for joining us today. And Michelle, Natalie, and Bridget, this was a wonderful chat, especially for the theme of World Mental Health Day. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. All right. Well, we will see you all during our next live, and have a great World Mental Health Day. And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.